In the presentation we're going to do today, Charlie's going to be our captain and I'm going to be our navigator. And we're going to try and look at a very complicated emerging area together while you all watch and enjoy, I hope, and see what we can all learn. Yeah, so what's interesting is for all of us is this is a whole new vocabulary. You've got Bitcoin, which is a cryptocurrency that is has this underlying technology of blockchain, which is really leveraging a few technologies, a crowdsourced, incentivized mining operation with a distributed ledger, a distributed set of records that are viewable by anyone. And this concept creates trust but anonymity, and it's really empowering. But it's created a whole new way of talking. We're going to use Intellar, which is the system that we created to present information we collect and curate. And so people collect and curate information, machines collect and curate information, and we're all trying to keep up with what's going on. The Intellar system is basically trying to help us figure out what are the most relevant items that we should be focusing on now. And one of its strengths is that it's curating, it's putting stuff into buckets. It's saying, these items relate to this way or they relate that way. So what we're going to do is interrogate it together with Charlie. And to do that, we're going to basically take one pile of information, which right now is sourced from various patent, news, and technical literature sources, about 200 million. The system presents satellite, helicopter, and microscope views of the same pile. And so we're going to start with the satellite view and work our way down. So Charlie, right now we're looking at the widest end of the funnel. We're looking at really the top organizations or entities that have been pulled from the set in every technology category that we have identified in a taxonomy that we'll show more of shortly. And we have the ability to kind of interrogate this and drill down through it. So maybe you can start asking us some questions.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to point out that what's really interesting is the way that you've sorted this is by the most the most persons with records to the least persons with records, and we see IBM at the top has a lot of records. The records are overwhelmingly news records because of the orange, but we also see what are the categories that they are talking about. So in the beginning, obviously, you're talking about different cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin is a big part of what they're talking about. You then have your feature benefits, and in the feature benefits, you're really talking about whether they're talking about access or security or transparency. And we see security, not surprisingly, is a big topic because that is one of the great advantages and risks associated with blockchain technology. You also see under the service category how these different things have been categorized as a variety of different services that are being provided. And we also, if you go on to the next one, the technology block, we see what elements of the technology they're working on, and obviously the distributed ledger is one of the biggest parts of where their voicing is occurring. We also see some major issues in terms of blockchain, in terms of forks, which has been in the press a lot, and other aspects of it. And the last part, which I think is particularly interesting, is the uses. And Barry, actually, if you pull up Bank of America, I wanted to go a little bit into some of the uses that the Intellar shows for that.
Gotcha.
Okay. Tokens and uses, right, Barry?
Oh, absolutely. So let's you want to focus on tokens? Yep.
I want to focus on tokens, right? So in the categories, we see that there is one of the categories is tokens, and we see here that they actually have both green and orange, which means patents and applications. The nice thing, one of the nice things about the Intellar tool is we can jump to the records view and actually see what those patents and applications are. And as you can see up top, there is on the left gold, which is the published application, and on the right is a green, which is a issued patent. One of the things that Barry's now showing us the actual patents that come up in the database as Bank of America having a patent in the token space. And one of the interesting things that I thought was that Bank of America has an issued patent on using blockchain to perform foreign exchange of currencies. So, you know, it gives us a little insight into at least where they think patents make sense. You want to jump to the application view for a second, Barry? Yes, in the application view, what we see is a published application that's a little dated. It had been filed in 2014 and published in 2015, showing that Bank of America was working on doing a transaction payment system, presumably a replacement for credit cards, using blockchain technology. So, you know, again, you get to have an insight as to what these things are. Barry, I believe you can actually go and can you go back to the patent view for a second?
Yeah, let me show.
I wanted to go to a patent. Yeah. I wanted to go to a patent.
Yeah.
So if we look at that foreign exchange patent, Barry, why don't you show us how we can go straight to the foreign exchange patent?
So what Intellar is doing is it's creating a GPS coordinate for a record wherever it lives on the internet. So we are getting evidence of the record, but the host of the record is the host of the data from where it was found, or its best version that we can point you to. So what's happening here is we're grabbing enough information pretty much as fast as it's coming out to figure out what it is, who's involved with it, and what topics it's touching on that we care about in our screen. And then, but the actual content is always being updated because it's held by the host. So here in this case, I'm linking to Google's version of the record that I discovered in Intellar.
And that record differs because that record, among other things, includes the claims, which the Intellar database doesn't, correct?
Right. Intellar will search them, it will categorize them, and it will organize them. But Intellar does not present patent claims to the users, keeping them insulated from any type of challenges by knowing too much on the patent side of things, which can be a concern for in-house practitioners.
One of the things that also I think is interesting is how you're using the filter of the records in order to pull up the Bank of America records. And, you know, I thought that's a nice device because I could go straight to records, just put Bank of America in or some other filters and get whatever data I'm looking for, correct?
Right. Well, when we clicked in the map, we clicked at the intersection of Bank of America, and tokens. So when we were in the bigger view, we took the same pile and we looked at the relationship a different way. So we are looking at the same trees, and we can basically see landscape views, forest views, or tree views. And if you will, then we can link you to the claims, which get you to the rings inside the tree. So yeah, so there's lots of ways to build trust that a record is good because you can see it in the context of the who, the what, the where, the when, as we'll continue to see.
So Barry, before we were looking at the landscape tab, can we jump to the organization tab, please, which is your second tab?
Yeah, actually, I have a view open here. We can go here.
So again, we were looking at the fact that Bank of America did tokens. What I'd like to do is I'd like to see who else besides Bank of America is involved with tokens, but I don't want the guys who only have a casual expression of it, so I'd like to have people that have 4 more records. Can you show us how we do that and what we get?
Sure. So here are organizations that only have 4 or more records, and there's 315 of the 2,300 we were just looking at. And we can sort this list of categories a number of different ways, but we will just hop to the token area. And there are 43 entities that are mentioning tokens at least once in our data set. And so we can start to learn about a little bit more about who's there from these views.
One of the things we wanted to do was to look at Coinbase in this set. I believe they're up at the top.
So this is there's one organization that intersects at Coinbase and Token with 4 or more records, and of course that's Coinbase. Now these tiles are actually expanding dossiers, Charlie. So I'm just going to expand the Coinbase summary and talk a little bit more about what's going on with them.
You read my mind. So why don't you start off and just tell us what each of the different portions of this tile reflect, and then I'll have some questions for you about some specific aspects of it.
Okay, so actually these tiles are commentable dossiers that are summarizing the number of records in the set. There's 120 patents, applications, literature, or news items in this particular set, broken out in this case by these years of these types. This company's been put into an organizational sector. There's actually 2 of them. We have them as a Bitcoin trader or exchange, and we also have them as a wallet provider. So we'll get to that in a minute. We can vote these tiles. So if we want, we can remember this tile for later and hop to it if we want, or we can teach our team, our humans and machines, to ignore it if we so want it, or change our mind if we also want it. The Coinbase is an interesting company. We won't spend too much time on them, but if there's a logo in a tile, if you click the logo, it will go to the company's website so you can learn more about them. If there's an icon here, you'll run a Google search on the company and build a dossier that Google has on it. The records are coming or mentioning from multiple different places, and so we're picking up locations from the data set. And then these are the top people associated with Coinbase-related content. Some of it's news in orange, some of it are patent applications. So these may be inventors. I can see here, these maybe it's the same person. When Coinbase is mentioned, it's mentioned with other entities. These are the entities that are most commonly mentioned with Coinbase. It looks like the IRS is number 1. I hope that's good news for them. These are the most recent records that are creating this dossier. And if we clicked on any one of these titles, we would go to the record. Now here in the guts, we're looking at the trends in the 2-level taxonomy. When we looked in the landscape map, I'll just hop back for 1 second. We saw some headers here, and actually I've got all my categories. I'll come back here. We had some headers that were our innovation areas. This is showing where their emphasis is, mostly on the cryptocurrency and services side here, with some of the other areas less emphasized in what they're either what people write about them or what they're patenting. And there's just some images associated with their records. And then these are concepts, important ideas that are unique to Coinbase. So compared to every other dossier in the set, these words are more important for Coinbase. So a bigger word does not show up more. It means that has more importance to the Coinbase set.
So like be safe. Why don't we see what that tells us when we click on it?
This is going to drill down to the records view now, and it's going to run a search on that term. So it's searching the set for BSave in the context of Coinbase, and it's locating those records for us.
And it's showing us that BSave is involved hierarchically with Coinbase as an investor, right?
That's my understanding. They're part of the family.
So by seeing that word blown up, you can see an important concept for them, and in this case, BSafe was an important concept because of their economic relationship with Coinbase, and it was a quick and easy way of learning it using your graphical interface.
Yeah, what I think is interesting is that it's older news, right? I mean, there hasn't been much recently from them, so not sure how successful this was. If we wanted to learn more, we could click on the title and it'll run a Google search for us and pull up that article. We can go take a look to see if maybe more has come. So we're able to, we're able to kind of hop around as we're learning about this stuff. Again, this is a piece of older news, but even if this came out yesterday, we would be able to quickly understand what it is, see it in context of the bigger picture, then go out and find that hit where we want to learn more about.
So Barry, one of the things that you can do when you're in this type of record view, if you go back to the record view. So in the record view, if right now we're looking at 2 of 5,920 tiles. Can you clear it and let's do a new search. And I want to talk a little bit about where you have the people. Can you expand that people in the filter? So why don't you tell us what you're trying to capture with this people filter, and then I want to actually look at who a few of the people are.
Sure. The people set here are authoring people or inventing people. They are not subject people. Whereas with the organizations, they are both authoring and subject organizations. So here we're looking at people who write a lot about blockchain. In this example, this exemplary set. And not everybody's captured. We're trying to capture, again, those folks who are the inventors or authors. So Haley McDowell is somebody, for example, who is writing quite prolifically about blockchain and Bitcoin.
So if I'm someone in the blockchain space and I want to know who's the authors I need to contact to try and get publicity, one of the things I can see is that Haley McDowell seems to be a prolific writer in this space. Why don't you click on her and show us what her articles show?
Yes. So Haley McDowell is a financial reporter who is working, covering the blockchain area extensively. With her most recent article we've retained is from August 9th. Actually, I'm going to sort this up. Her oldest article in here from April of last year. So she's done quite a lot in a fairly recent amount of time for since we've collected back to 2015 in the literature and news. My assumption is that she is newer on the beat, but is quite active and is getting. She may be a freelance journalist. She's picked up in a lot of places, or her site, her employer may be syndicating content. Actually, Charlie, I've done a quick look at her because she was number one. I'm just going to hop to a page on her. This is Haley. This is her Twitter feed, and so she's very reachable. She's working for At the Trade News at the moment, and again, this is buy-side daily news, so there is probably some bias here to think about when we evaluate her point of view.
So let's look at a different thought leader that's in there, and let's look at Russell Fine, who's sort of at the bottom of your top list with 33 hits, and see who he is a little bit.
So Russell is a prolific inventor who is working with Assignee Gameplay Network, and he has, these are his oldest things. His newest things are published in April of this year, still priority dating back to 2013, and so it looks like this looks like casino gaming and wagering, and it looks like again, serious games, if you will, and these are all granted patents. So there's quite a bit, that's coming out in this portfolio. So there's a lot. There's a fairly valuable portfolio, I would argue here, from Russell Fine. And actually, we've looked into him too. Russell is actually with the corporate parent is B-Spot. This is Russell here, and Russell has again is associated with a high-end, serious gaming company.
Okay, why don't we go back to the website and let's take a look at the categories tab, and let's talk a little bit about what we see in the categories tag.
Sure. So this is where a lot of the value of keeping up with the content is. It's really important for all of us who are trying to stay on top of what's going on, that we have our screens ready to go. And those of us who keep on top of companies or stocks or equities, whatever we're doing, we're screening most of the time. This is a high throughput screener for concepts. And so there's more than one taxonomy here. Right now we're looking at the technology or innovation taxonomy. And this is a set of areas around, and these are the same headers we saw on the landscape map. These are the areas. And in each area is a set of categories that we have identified as important. And then we've basically clustered concepts to these. We have used rules to move things into these concepts, and then humans have gone through and checked the relevance of the concepts pretty much on a continuous basis. It's being checked through various approaches to ensure that something either mentions the right word in the right context or has the right relationship.
And these are the same. And these are the same categories we were looking at in the landscape view before, right?
That's right. What you're looking at here is the same. I'll reset the map. Is the same content that's displayed in the landscape map on the top header. So we're looking at this information here also in our categories. So
in the category space, can you go for a second onto the uses of gaming, since we were talking about Russell Fine a few minutes ago, and see what else we get in that space besides Mr. Fine's company?
Sure. So I can either show my data series here, and I can also sort these to see sort of what's most active. Gaming is our third most active use that's isolated from the data next to Internet of Things and banking or financial. And I know for the folks on the call, there's a number of people who registered from these sectors that are outside of banking and financial. I know there's a significant amount of industry also, and from healthcare to automotive to identity. But in the gaming side here, we can again click through these labels to learn more, or we can look at intersections. So, for example, I might look at everything in gaming, or I might just want to see what is Microsoft doing in blockchain and gaming. They have two records. You know, how are they mentioned? Or I might want to say, well, no, I really just care about it. I'll look from Microsoft once I learn a little bit more about the sector. So here, we can click through the whole thing. I'll click on Microsoft in a minute. So we've just now moved into our pile of 226 gaming things that mention a gaming concept, of which, again, Russell had 33 of those records. And now I can get a better sense of what any one player is doing. Here's the Microsoft records that they mentioned. It looks like they mentioned gaming. They mentioned Xbox. But not necessarily. They're not. It doesn't look like they've got any products that are offered in the area here.
Barry, if we can go back to the categories, I want to look at the event area portion of the categories.
So there's actually two taxonomies here. One taxonomy is tracking about 80 different technology concepts in 6 or 7 areas. The events taxonomy is tracking nearly 300 business events, positive and negative events, across a range of behaviors. And in this context here, again, let me just turn off the labels. We're looking at a number of different deal making, employment, and critical news events that are happening in the data. Let me turn the series back on.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I thought was interesting is that you include both debuts and forecasts, and I just want to look at sort of like the difference between the debuts and forecasts here. Why don't you show us what you have in debuts and the significance? You know, what type of records we have. It's under product launches. When you say debut, what do you mean?
We mean a something that is either announced as new, or that is announced as launched, or that is announced as, fresh. And we're capturing some other magic concepts that go with it, but the debut is really the catch-all for these ideas. And so when we want to find what's new in the news or what's new on the market, we're checking to see where that's happening. So here's our debut set. These are from 2 days ago. So these are launches. So just 2 days ago, Bar Chart announced a new data feed for cryptocurrency. So maybe we need it in our tool, Charlie. There's new ways to get information and stay up to speed. And here are announcements that we're collecting in the space. And so I just scroll down if you have other questions, most of people can see some of the new things that are available.
One of the things that I thought was interesting is your value range, sorter. If you go up for a second again.
Yeah, Charlie, you're referring to that we actually track whether things mention millions, billions, trillions, and in fact, interestingly, there's one article here that mentions quadrillions, which is always fun to see. It's a big area.
So if we wanted to look at what the $1,000 debuts were, because we're low investors, we could look and click on that and get a sense of what's out there. And likewise, if we want to see what the bigger $1 million ones are, we could instead click on that. And similarly, if we wanted to look at the really big unicorns, we could look at the ones that use the word billions in them.
Or trillions.
Or trillions. which there still are 10 out there, amazingly enough.
So Charlie, here I just hopped. Not in that intersection. There weren't a lot of $1 trillion debuts, so I just turned off the debut filter. Now I'm just looking at anything in the set that mentions trillions in a currency context. It's not counting trillions of Bitcoin. We're counting trillions of dollars or euro or yen or renminbi or yuan. But here you can see some other things. I actually had marked up a few. We're the system user. Anyone can add comments to these records here, and when we publish, we are trying to squint like our recipients and bring them their analysis, and so that's here. We've published this with some comments already, this is some points of view that were in there. So we can actually jump to the comments. If we wanted to. So if you weren't sure what was commented, you could see which things did the system user comment. And actually it says, Charlie, I don't think you have any comments on these slides, but we could possibly, in the interest of time and a good segue here, move to your commented records to see some of the other things that you pointed out that you thought were interesting. So even though multiple people are looking at the same busy pile, divided up lots of different ways, and sliced in different subsets or subsets, we can each form our opinion of value and importance and quickly jump to it. And if I thought this was really important, Charlie, you could give that a quick vote, and then we could just really hop to your voted records. And even though there's 5,000 things, 50,000 things, this tool it makes it super easy to ignore what you don't want to see. So you can screen to what you're trying to get to and form that opinion. Is this important or not?
Well, one of the things I thought was interesting, when you look at debuts, that's sort of telling you what happened in the past. I thought another interesting category you had was forecasts. And why don't we jump and take a look at the forecast category too?
Yeah, so Charlie, I went through some of these. What I noticed was interesting. The forecasts disagree, and as they tend to do, the growth rates, the projected growth rates for Bitcoin, a blockchain, are all over the place. I'm just going to turn on some of the forecasts that I marked up. There are basically growth forecasts, there are market forecasts, market size forecasts, and then there are revenue forecasts. And then you could have those forecasts for Bitcoin, or you could have it for blockchain, or you could have it for both. And so a lot of people are trying to handicap this space. This is a good way to start looking at it. Sorry, go ahead.
Right. And one of the important points is, just because the data is in here doesn't mean it's correct. It just means someone said it. But at least you know what people are saying, so you can make your own value choices.
Right. We're trying to pick it up. That's right. There's no intention here to say because the data is here or not here that that's important or not important. If it's here, we think it's more important for the user, for the team that's using the information. And we're trying to, we're not trying to get all of it. We're trying to make sure we know it existed and tell you why you should care. And then if you want to know more, you can quickly link out to the fact to get it, to cite it, or to get more information about it.
So another thing that I thought was interesting was your org type review view. Can you go into that for a minute, please?
Yeah. So we don't just categorize records or technologies. We categorize companies. So these expanding dossiers are tracking the activity of the key players and groups of players in the landscape, so we can get a sense of who we might want to work with or don't want to work with. So we can carve out groups of companies.
And if you open up the venture capital one for a second, which I think is a little lower down.
Yeah, I can just hop right to that. So let me just get my venture capital group up and expand their tile.
So, one thing I wanted to point out, while you have the same categories, the way the data runs is different. So, the people that are listed here are the people that fall within the venture capital group, and the words that you pick are the ones that are unique to the collection of venture capital companies that you put in the tile. Is that correct?
That's right. So here we're looking for any one of 1,000 different venture capital firms around the world. And in this case, there's just a handful of them. I'm going to just pop up an organization title here. If you click on the org type icon, it will open up a filtered set. Now, right now, this is filtered to three or more records because we looked at that a moment ago. But I'm just going to reduce this to one or more records, and we'll see that really no venture capital firm except for SoftBank has done multiple deals of blockchain and Bitcoin that we can see. Might be there. Oh, so let me just pop the venture capital thing. And so there's 13 firms that have one or more Bitcoin or blockchain deal that we've picked up since 2015. I'm sure there's more. This is what we have and what's being announced. And in here, everyone's doing onesies in most cases, with the exception of Andreessen Horowitz has a couple. SoftBank has a few more. And these are announcements. These are all not all necessarily deals. We'll get to that in a second. So this is who's doing it. And then when we went back on the sector, what we were looking at in the sector was an understanding of whether or not what these people were talking about. And so these are these are company names that are important. OneWeb, Showbad, Showcard. These are Snapdeal, Mobile Iron, Murado. These are the deals that they're doing that's being pulled out of the set. And if you look at their innovation areas, you see that when they talk about their opportunities, they're speaking about what its use is for. A lot of this stuff is outside of finance. A lot of this is in new areas from Internet of Things and others. And then some of them are in finance that are trying to build better wallets, better structures, better authentication, identity improvement, things like that. But and here's this abstract of their topics and some of their events.
You know, another interesting filter I thought you have in this view is the location filter. So, for example, if I want to know what are the relevant sectors for China, how would I do that?
We would clear the look at all our sectors for now. Let me just collapse them so they're not in our way, and then we can take a look and see how active is China in all of these sectors, and so we can go to our locations, and we see that 13 or 14 of the track sectors have at least one China element to them. We can learn more in this view or another. It's pretty popular over there.
And what about like India, for example? What would we see for them?
I'll look for India. I'll just point out that even though it's popular in China, just this past week, China announced that they were going to outlaw Bitcoin exchanges in the country because they feel a need to control it, and they're not there yet.
And they also announced their own. And one of the records in your database is that they also announced their own efforts to make their own coin for China's currency. It's an interesting double side on the issue. So for India, what we're seeing is that in 9 of the 14 categories they're involved. What if we pick something like Venezuela? What would happen? What do we learn from there?
Well, actually, Charlie, it's interesting because they are in the set. There are nearly 15 or 16 countries or nations that are mentioned in this data. Just helping everyone appreciate the vastness of this opportunity. And so, Bitcoin and blockchain is everywhere. Big news this past week was a $320 million apartment complex in Dubai is now going to let people buy apartments with Bitcoin. So you can buy your real estate now with Bitcoin in Dubai. So get going. Here's Venezuela, and so right now they just touch one sector. What might be good is to actually just go to the records for a minute, and we can just see what our Venezuelan records are. And again, Venezuela, in this case, Venezuela might be the source of the information, or it might be I think I logged out here. It might be the source of the information, or it might be the subject of the information. So I see. So let me pull that up. pull up Venezuela, and we'll pull that out. Charlie, I do want to encourage questions from the folks who are on the call. If you do have any questions, you can send them by chat to the organizer. And if there's something about automotive and blockchain, healthcare and blockchain, Venezuela and blockchain, whatever it is that you want to track, we will do our best to try to drive to it in the conversation. And Charlie, now there was a question: how do you get all this stuff out? Once you find what you're interested in, that's something that may be important here. I'll just put a comment in for a minute. And while we're talking here, I'll just grab a set of records that I've commented and voted, and just pull it out so that we can bring that into a tool like Excel and develop our data somewhere else at another time. So just wanted to point out that when we do what we do and go through the information, once we're done with it, we can bring it out with hyperlinks. We can bring it out with our votes and comments, and be able to capture our knowledge in a way that is transferable. So nothing's really trapped here. Just like Intellar takes you to different places on the internet, it's trying to take you to different places in the tools and data you're already paying for. Everything that we see here in Intellar can be linked to the tools and data we're all already paying for in the first place.
And one of the things which I guess we didn't talk about, but on the filter, you can actually search words. So if we want to search hackers, you can get all the records that say hackers.
That's right. So I'm clearing my filter so I don't look within the set that I was just browsing. But yes, I can do any kind of. I'm moving my controls out of the way here. I can kind of scan screen for concepts that I think are interesting to me, that I'm trying to understand, and bring that to some conclusion. Again, this is just 2 days ago. This is a super interesting article for right now for North Korea. Again, and of course there's the WannaCry hack that has been maybe the biggest hack in world history, but that demanded Bitcoin ransoms. And right now, it's looking like that North Korea is targeting Bitcoin as a way to build up its coffers. And with the skyrocketing value of Bitcoin, maybe they are the market maker. We don't know. And so, but there's a lot to track here in terms of where things are going. And North Korea is actually currently, as of 2 days ago, big part of it.
So, Barry, one of the things I want to do is I want to go back to the category view for a minute and talk about finding, overlap and intersection of companies. And for example, R3 is an entity which I want to see how it relates to like Goldman Sachs for a second. So why don't we do a combination of R3 and Goldman Sachs and see what we got?
Sure. So this is the R3 portfolio, if you will. So these categories now are representing R3. These are the uses R3 talks about the most. These are the tech elements that R3 talks about the most. These are the features that benefit R3 talks about the most, or that's being discussed in the context of R3. Okay? And so if we want to understand if there's overlap with Goldman, we can do it. Now, when we do these searches by default, these searches are end. So just do an or. This is any news from R3 or from Goldman. So this is a bigger set. And then we can go back to end. And then these are the things that mention both R3 and Goldman. So here's the overlap between those two firms.
And we could click on any one of them to see the article that it's talking about, but it's showing us big picture-wise how they intersect. What happens if we wanted to see what a potential combination of, I don't know, let's say Coinbase and Microsoft would look like? Okay,
sure. So we can clear that, and we can take a look at Coinbase and Microsoft. This is their combination, and these are the areas that they are mentioned in technically, and then these are the business events or scales that they're associated with. So there's some commonalities between the two firms in several different areas, and we can maybe begin to build a hypothesis. I think automotive is very interesting. I don't know, it's only one mention, so we don't know if it's casual or it's causal. So we can take a look here. But yeah, right now I see they're affiliated through a network, right? So Microsoft is here in this association with Coinbase. So clearly they have occasion to consort, and they've been doing it for a while. But right now, doesn't look like there's a business relationship that's being described that way.
So I think we've gotten to the point where we've demonstrated pretty much the different things that we wanted to demonstrate. And I guess if anyone has any questions, now's a good time. Thank you very much for including me in this, and I hope that our listeners have enjoyed this opportunity to explore Bitcoin and blockchain through the Intellar network. If anyone wants to talk to me about IP issues in the area, feel free to reach out. Our website is arelaw.com, and you can reach me at cmacedo@arelaw.com. Thank you once again, Barry, for including us, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their lunch break.
All right. Enjoy your Bitcoin investing and your development of blockchain. Thanks all again. Best wishes. Have a great week. Bye-bye.